Hi, everybody. Welcome to this Zoom presentation. This presentation is about connecting Beaverton runners through group runs, and we have some ideas for theme runs and games for runners. Of course, 98% of this applies to when we are not in a global pandemic. But this is prepared for people who are maybe runners but brand new to organizing or putting on group runs. So if that's you, I hope you'll learn something from this. Just to give you an idea of what we're going to talk about today, we're going to go over how to organize a group run from the perspective of safety, how often you should do it, how you can be more inclusive, and then how to pick a good route so people like it. I will share some examples of other fun theme group runs and one that was fun but fairly illegal and problem causing. And then I was going to try and get into some suggestions or opportunities in Beaverton if anybody had any. But just 3 things to remember. If you are hosting a group run, the more important thing to think about is having fun rather than hitting a specific time goal. Obviously, if you have a group of runners that are all more competitive or all around the same pace, you can work that in. The next thing is that if you are the group run leader, you should prioritize the group's experience over your own workout, because you can go and do your intervals or your hill training or whatever on your own time. And then finally, a group run is only going to succeed if people feel welcomed, if they feel supported, and if it's a safe run. Now I can see my picture. So this is me. In this picture, I'm going with a giant yellow arrow floating above my head, but I have always been interested in community sports, so this is just an extension of that. I was on the rowing team in college, and I decided competition's fun when there's other people literally pulling the boat for you, but I didn't like being in the spotlight. So when I was an undergrad, I did an internship with the Olympic Committee, and I saw how all the different governing bodies put funding into developing the pipeline, because there are some sports like biathlon, just a lot of sports where people don't know what they are and they don't have a huge fan base. So they use a lot of really neat tricks to build that fan base so that more people are interested and want to support it and then get their kids into it or get to it themselves. I also have been involved with a lot of running clubs in the area. I was on the board for Red Lizards and for Oregon Runners Club. I'm the editor of the Oregon Runners Club magazine, and I have a running blog called Run Oregon, and I also help the Run Pub, which is part of Portland Running Company, put on their events. So keep going. So the basics of putting on a group run, because it can sound like at first blush it's like just get together and go run, but in order to be successful, there's more to think about. So you need to have a route. This is for safety. It gives people an idea of what to expect from week to week so they know where to go and how far they're going to go. If you pick out a route you already know, it's a lot easier. So on this slide, there's a couple websites you can use to help map out a run so you can tell the distance, and maybe look for simpler configurations, because just because you always run something a certain way doesn't mean it's going to be easy for other people to remember. I suggest staying off busy streets. Sometimes they will have better light, so in the winter they might be better, but in general, side streets are better because they're quieter. I also think you want to match who your audience is. So if you want both runners and walkers, maybe have a 2-mile route and a 3-mile route, or a 2-mile and 4-mile. For most running groups, 3 to 4 miles is good. There's one group run that I helped organize where we did 3 miles, but there was a half-mile loop just right outside the start finish, so people could add distance, or if they had a little bit more they wanted to accomplish that night. Having restrooms at the start is a very good idea, especially if people are coming straight from work, have anything more than a half an hour commute to get to where your run is starting, that kind of thing. If it's not possible, it's not possible. You might have a place that you run past where people can take care of that. Water's great to have at the start finish, but people can bring their own. That's always a good thing. And when you're planning the start and finish, look for a space that has a lot of free parking and that's away from traffic. So for example, since we're in Beaverton, I think everybody knows the Beaverton Fred Meyer there right by the 217 Highway 10. That's a very central location. Everybody knows where it is. But if you're going to have a group run meeting there, it's a huge area, so people may not know where exactly to go. And anywhere you're going to run, you have to cross a busy street to get started. So if you were thinking of something near there, look instead for a community park. Like Fifth Street Park is great because there's a lot of residential street parking. There's not a lot of other stuff going on there. It doesn't have a bathroom, but it's close enough to the library so that if the library's open, you can make that part of your route and hit the restroom there. That route will have a lot of impact on how well the group run goes, just because people, they want to feel safe and they want to know that it's going to be something that they can actually do. So regarding safety, depending on who you are, you may not have to think much about safety when you go out for a run, but a lot of people do, and there's probably a lot of people who don't but should. The group can be safer, but if the group gets completely spread out over 3 miles, it's not a safer option. So a couple ideas for that are to suggest a buddy system, have a sweeper, definitely, that can run last and make sure that nobody gets lost, nobody gets left behind. When people are new, kind of find out what they're comfortable with. Some people feel more self-conscious if someone's running right next to them. So have someone in the group that can kind of just keep an eye on them. It's a good idea to create the route online and post it somewhere so that people can follow it there. And then just kind of how you greet people when they come. Instead of saying, how fast do you run? You can say, what pace might be comfortable today? And then you can kind of pair them up with somebody that it'll be easy enough for them. So for example, you might say, tonight we're running the Right Answer Park Loop, and Supriya is going to run sweep. Can you take a walk break? If you're not feeling it, she'll be there with you. If anybody in this group ever feels unsafe because of the route, because another member, because something happens, I want you to call me, and then share your phone number. And then any comments about, we're going to cross Murray Boulevard, make sure you use the stoplight at Davis because it's a lot safer and I don't want anybody jaywalking, especially because it'll be dark by the time we get there. In terms of the sidewalks, most of Beaverton has great sidewalks. Some places don't. If your route doesn't have sidewalks, I would consider changing it just because make it safer for everybody. And then in terms of frequency, if it's just you putting on a group run, more than once or twice a month might be more than you want to do to start off. But if you can get 3 or 4 other people that will be leaders with you, you can make it a weekly thing and then take turns, because it's nice to have leaders that come from different backgrounds and have different personality styles. I have a personality that I know bothers some people because I tend to be too energetic, and it grates on some people. So having different people be leaders will give people that attend someone different to identify with, and that might encourage them to keep coming back. And that's what can make your group run take off, which can take a couple months, to be honest. So you got to kind of be ready to stick with it. I think it's also important to address inclusion. And that means everything. I know there's a lot of talk right now about how to be more inclusive. And that extends past skin color. You got to look at financial barriers. Have your start finish somewhere where there's a bus route nearby, someplace that offers bike parking. A lot of people have kids and they may not have the ability for childcare. So if you have a route that's stroller friendly or friendly enough for a kid's bike, they can come along too. When you're looking for the other people to help you lead the group, I would try and find people of different ages, different genders, different orientations, and especially because this is a physical athletic pursuit, different body types. I know if I show up to a run and everyone's like 120 pounds soaking wet, looks like they can run a 6-minute mile, I'm gonna probably feel like maybe I don't belong there because I'm not fast enough. So try and be as inclusive as you can. I think it's also important to invite people. So rather than just say, hey, there's this group run, come if you can. If you individually invite someone, they're probably more likely to feel like they'd actually be welcome. And up here's just some examples. The first one works because it gives someone an option to where they can go for more information. So they can look on Facebook. If you go check out Sunstone Running Club on Facebook, you'll see a ton of photos, which shows the diversity of the group. You can see how active the group is on the Facebook page. And you'll also maybe notice that their Facebook page is all about running. They don't get into politics. They don't get into other things going on in their life. So it's a safe space to go and talk about running. The one on the bottom is a good one because it tells people where you meet, how far you run, how fast you run, and it just is very, there's not a lot of pressure. It's like, hey, if you can ever come, we'd love to have you. And it's a consistent thing, so maybe we'll see you, and that's it. You don't need an answer. So now that we have kind of the basics about how to create a group run, I want to make it a little bit more fun. So think about what you like to do. And I know this can be kind of hard because I like to crochet, I like to read. These are not things that shout out, let's make a group run about this. But if you think about, maybe think back to your younger days when you might have gone on blind dates, or think about what you would do when you had more time and energy to plan a birthday party. So just some ideas up here that I'll throw up. You can kind of see any of these can be turned into a group run adaptation, which is a lot of fun. So games work well for group runs for a lot of reasons. If it's a game a lot of people have played, it probably has a lot of good memories associated with it. It's novel because, like I said, you're taking your love of crochet or knitting and adding it to something running, which is interesting. And it might give people who think of themselves as a knitter or a crafter and not necessarily a runner, it might give them an easier door to walk through to get involved in running than they've ever found before. Games also work because they have rules. You don't have to take forever explaining the rules. The most simple games are the best. So if you have a game like Sorry, which is very simple and probably everyone has played it, it's pretty easy to turn that into something that you can do at a group run without adding any additional challenges, mental or physical. Games also take the pressure off because the group run is usually, when you show up to a group run, you're worried about how far it is and how fast people are going to run and can you keep up. But if you have the game involved, it's not just about how fast, how strong, how far you can run, that kind of thing. It's more about, are you a team player? Do you know a lot of random trivia? And that can really help people get themselves to a group run. One of my friends actually went to her first group run ever and didn't even get out of the car because she got there and she was just so nervous. So it can be a way to take that pressure off and show people that they can have fun doing this with other people without feeling so nervous. Then the last thing is, by incorporating mental activity with the physical activity, it just adds a different element to it, and it lets you get to know the people that are at that group run a little bit more, because it paves the way for, let's talk about other things besides just your next race, or asking, have you ever run a marathon, that kind of thing. So it's a lot of fun. So now we're going to look at some examples of group runs. If you have ever met me before, I've probably asked you if you would like to go to an escape room. I kind of love them. But you can add those into a room. You could start out with the locked box challenges, talk to friends, see if they'd be willing to host one in their driveway. It doesn't have to make a big deal out of it. You can just say, don't worry, every house we're stopping at has said it's okay to be there. You can work with local businesses. Just a lot of different fun things. The clues can be things that you hand to them. They can be observational clues. They can contain, once you get into the box, it can tell you the next place to go, which can either be just straight instructions or it can be more clues. It just kind of depends on how much you want people to have to think. And this is great for a group run that starts out with a scattershot approach, which is maybe you have people starting, some people start at Southridge High School, some people start at the Beaverton City Library, and maybe some people are starting at the Michaels on 5th Street in Western. You could have all of them starting at these different locations and then ending up in one central location. You will need volunteers for that, and it does require a lot of planning, but I think it's worth it, and it's usually something then you can do with other people. Trivia is a lot of fun to do. I don't know too many people who don't like trivia of some sort. You can come up with questions on your own. You can survey your friends on social media, kind of do a Family Feud style thing. You could create questions around the theme. Like, I have a dream to create a Hamil run, which is based on the Hamilton musical, where you essentially have however long the movie plays, it's like 2 hours and 30 some minutes, where during that time people have to answer questions about Eliza and Alexander Hamilton's life and the Revolutionary War. And I know I'm a nerd. But you can do that, and that might help draw people in. If you do different themes, you'll draw different people, and those can be one-offs. They can be something that you plan, it happens, it's done. Or you can even take your route at a regular group run and post questions. So that way you're running along, you pass by a question, you got that to think about in your head, and then when you get to the finish, the questions are written again, people submit their answers. It's just kind of a fun way to get people excited. Another one you can do would be a crazy type relay. So you can actually, this works out really well for speed workout. Where essentially after each interval, they have something they have to do. You can bring in different types of exercise or stretches. You can even have a relay as part of your cool down or your warm up where you do, a slow pace run and then you stop and do a certain stretch. But what's nice about this is these kind of relays, you can kind of mix up if you know people's speeds. So that way you can kind of level the playing field so they can all get to know each other outside of who they typically run with. And this book that's pictured here, it's called Pedestrianism. It's by Matthew Algeo, and the Beaverton City Library does have it. But even though it's about competitive walking from the turn of the century, it's got some really interesting suggestions. There's one where I think every 100 yards they had to pick up a boulder and carry it with them. And so by the end of it, they were carrying all these rocks. It's just kind of weird. But then earlier I mentioned how you could try and take some non-running interests and turn them into running activities. So running book club is something great. You pick out a book, you assign some pages, and then at the next run you have some discussion questions, and before you know it, you've run 4 miles while figuring out what exactly that character meant or what they did. A community culture crew is something where if you've got people that are patrons of the arts, or you want to talk about maybe politics if you're brave, you get together, you have a question or two for that week, and then as you run, you discuss it. The University of Oregon does something cool called Run with a Researcher, where they have someone who's studying, and then people from the community can come and learn about what it is that person's researching. So that's kind of a nice way to do things. If you have friends that are running for city council or any type of public office, maybe suggest that to them and see if they can come out and explain things. A park cleanup or adoption team. For this, I would talk to your local jurisdiction. So in our case, 12 in Hills Park and Rec, they have needs for people to go to parks and look for certain invasive species so they know what's going on. They need people to basically be park stewards where they look around for litter that needs to be cleaned up, graffiti that needs to be sprayed away, that kind of thing. So you can actually earn volunteer hours while you run. And then you can check with not just the Humane Society, but there's a number of pet rescue places, especially dogs, that before they have an adoption event, they like the dogs to get exercise because then they're a little bit chilled out and they interview better with potential owners. So those are just a couple. I think I might have talked about scavenger hunt before, but if you're going to do a scavenger hunt, you can use cell phones and have people take photos. Either tell them the location and they have to take a selfie there, or you can tell them a list of things to look for and they have to send you photos of those things. You can have raffle tickets when people get there and use it for raffle prizes. And you can also bring in a lot of different types of puzzles. I'll talk about one here in a minute where I use different puzzles to get people going somewhere. But I also want to mention that if you want to create something, let's say for your kids' classroom, you could do this with different things that they've learned over the course of the year. Pardon me. Okay, and then creation runs would be something else for crafters out there. And the whole point of this is that the group creates something together, which is more fun than if someone had just done it on their own. So you can have checkpoints where at every place people get a puzzle piece, and then the whole group has to put the puzzle together when it's done. You can have a creation checkpoint. So you pick up different crafting items, and then at the finish, you kind of go through and make the craft together. So this would work really well if you're making, for example, holiday decorations, or I don't know, be creative, whatever you want to do. Art runs are kind of similar. You can do that way, or you could do something where you give each person, for example, a piece of sidewalk chalk, and you say, okay, we're going to do loops here, and this area is designated as the art area. So every time you run by, add a little something to it, and by the end of it, you've got something that the entire group has created, which is just kind of a piece of public art that you can go by, and then afterwards you can use a hashtag if you have one for your group run or something that you want to support. And then Mad Libs runs, I think most people know what Mad Libs are. It's where you have a story, but you've removed the important information, the nouns, adjectives, names, that kind of thing. So instead what you do is you have checkpoints, like this is a noun checkpoint, and you have everyone maybe fill out 3 little slips of paper and write 3 nouns on them. And then the next checkpoint's adjectives, and then when you get to the finish, you have people take turns reading the story and drawing nouns and adjectives and names out of the hat. And so you end up with kind of a group Mad Lib. I think that would be a lot of fun. And so next we're going to talk about some group runs that have been put on in this area that have done, mainly ones that have done a good job. So the ones I'm going to talk about, Women's Scavenger Hunt, the first Thursday group run, which was downtown Portland, how to do a Cards Against Humanity run or something similar, a group run that the Red Lizards put on called the Easter Fulton, and then I'll talk a little bit about the Urban Iditarod, which was a cool idea, but broke so many laws. It was such a mess that I do not recommend it. So the first one is the Women's Scavenger Hunt, and here's the flyer for it. You can see I had a place for people to sign up. This particular registration company called Run Sign Up does not charge you if you are not charging a registration fee, but people can still make donations. So all the people who donated ended up donating to Girls on the Run. And we were very clear that this was just for women. It was to support programs that supported women and girls in our community. And when it was all over, we put out information on who had donated and the total amount, because it's something that you have to be very transparent about. If you're taking money from people, you need to be sure that it can be verified it went to the right place. Otherwise, people probably won't want to do your group runs anymore. The reason why it's so important to be clear on what the run is about is that non-running activities do not appeal to everyone. And so by telling people that there would be other things they were doing at this group run, nobody got there and then got upset and left. So that is one idea. This one we started out with, everyone was given a crossword puzzle. They could use their cell phones to find the answers, but all of the questions were about amazing women, and so they were able to find their next location from the clues. At this one, we also had people go into the city library and take a photo of a book that they'd like to recommend to friends. So we used some of the local businesses, and we just focused it all on being a strong woman. First Thursday, you may have done this one. There's also the Discovery Run that Roadrunner Sports did, but this is something that at first Fit Right started it, and then it was purchased by another store and continued it for a short time. But what this one is, basically the map, which is the picture on the top right, was brought out, and each of those places was a checkpoint. So as many of them as you could get to, you could get raffle tickets, and then you could win prizes. You can tell that you're going to need more volunteers, and if you need volunteers, you need people to organize the volunteers and make sure they all know what they're doing. However, this one, if done on a regular basis, can really build up a strong following because it was a lot of fun. And this one also worked with local breweries to have free beer at the end for people that were of age. This is something that I think would work very well in the different areas of Beaverton. You could do something in Cedar Hill, you could do something in Progress Ridge, you could do something downtown Beaverton. And work with the businesses so that the activities that the participants do there give the participants an actual idea of what the business does, as opposed to just stepping in and grabbing a raffle ticket. So the CAH is Cards Against Humanity, but this could also work with any game that has that format where there's a question and then players put in their submission and then a judge picks the answer. So you might have heard of awkward family photos or what do you mean? If you do use Cards Against Humanity, I recommend that you pull out the cards that are extremely inappropriate. Just that way no one's going to feel embarrassed if they have to read something that they're mortified about. You can also do this with more traditional board games. You could even use something like Chutes and Ladders and have people just take their turns. The reason it works is because you use a short loop or a short out and back, and then people just take their turn every time they come back by the game board. This one also works well because people can still come and participate in the run without participating in the game. It's not going to slow them down. It's not going to take away from their experience if they don't participate. So it's a good one to kind of ease people into thinking of a group run as something where they can do something else a little more fun. The Easter Fulton is a lot of fun. I actually came up with this one long ago. I'm in the picture, kneeling in the front row wearing a trench coat, and I was massively pregnant at the time. But what it is we went and got plastic eggs, we filled them with candy, and we hid them along a 6-mile route. This one takes a lot of prep work, but if you are excited about what you're doing, other people will be excited about what you're doing and have fun while they're doing it. This kind of group run where it's like a scavenger hunt where you're actually leaving things and picking them up, you have to have really tight controls over it. And I recommend having at least one person for each mile of the distance. So that way you're not setting out 6 miles of plastic eggs and then picking up 6 miles of plastic eggs, because you want to make sure that you don't leave anything there that someone's kid could find or their dog could find or something like that. But these can be a lot of fun and really good ways to celebrate anniversaries, holidays, inside jokes within your club if you've got them. It's just a lot of fun. And now we'll talk about the bad example. If you ever did the Portland Urban Iditarod, you probably had a great time. I think I did it 4 or 5 years. The person who organized it is a friend of mine. And it's something that teams of 5 would get a shopping cart, which was generally stolen. They would run from bar to bar. They would wear these elaborate costumes like we've got here, the Last Supper. We've got Mary Poppins, and then there's just a shot of the Jupiter Hotel, which is one of the checkpoints in here. This race did not get permits. People just met underneath the Hawthorne Bridge, and they started out by running up MLK, which completely shut down the road. You can see all the safety risks, like the Last Supper. They're taking up an entire traffic lane. Mary Poppins here is riding in a shopping cart, and if they hit a bump, there's a good chance she's going to go flying. This type of thing could be done well and could be done legally. In Chicago, it raises a ton of food for their local food bank, but it really just was disrespectful. It left a big mess for other people, and people got very inebriated, which wasn't a good look. So once you have your idea, and it's a good idea where people aren't likely to get hurt or arrested, jot it down, work it out, talk it over with friends so they can point out any pitfalls for you. Pick a date, create your event. If you're going to have registration, set that up. Do at least one test run, if not more. You can have a friend go run it with you. If you've got a friend that's good with instructions and directions, give them the route and let them try it on their own, see what feedback they have. Line up your volunteers, line up backups for those volunteers, and then at the event, take a lot of photos, and at and after the event, collect feedback. So that way, if you do it again or something similar, you've got something to go on. So on this slide, the first 4 bullets are things we already talked about, and the bottom 5 bullets are things that you need to think about that are unique to game runs. So if you're going to do activities, is there a safe location where you can do it? Not just safety from vehicles and so on, but you don't want people in the direct sun for more than a couple minutes, right? Can you work with local businesses and incorporate them? Maybe you can go inside a restaurant to do one of the activities. Will the activities slow everything down and make what should be a 45-minute group run a 2-hour ordeal? If it's raining, can you still do it? And then again with the volunteers, because if you need volunteers, you got to plan ahead and you got to have people ready to help you out. There's a couple run formats that I want to talk about just quick, because most group runs are either a loop or an out and back, which you can definitely still do for these fun team group runs. But if it's just you putting it on, or just you and a couple of people, having one central location where you run from and back to, and then run from and back to over and over again can help. There's some large businesses in Beaverton that may be willing to let you use their campus. Definitely get permission before you do that. You can set up a run or a group run that has multiple starts. So maybe you start people every 10 minutes just to avoid congestion at the checkpoint. You can set something up online that people can do all on their own. Photo scavenger hunts work really well for that. You can do the short out and backs like we talked about with the Cards Against Humanity idea. And you can do a flower. And I know that my picture doesn't look like a flower, but if you see that little red dot there, that's the 5th Street Park. And from there, people can make 4 loops. They can run north and east, past the library, along Hall, up through downtown Beaverton. They can run to the southeast through the neighborhood where there's a lot of quiet streets and nice houses. And then they can go west and do the Griffith Park loop, or they can go further west, run past Little People's Park, and run around a residential neighborhood that's just south of Highway 10. So all of these formats will work well. You just kind of have to test out and see what's going to work best. Now, I'm sure you guys might have some ideas, some locations that you would love to plan something from, or something you'd love to plan, but you're not sure where or when. So if you have questions or suggestions, you can join the Run Oregon Group Run Planning Group on Facebook. You should be able to find it and just send a request to join, and I'll be the one who sees it. So hopefully you'll let us know if this was helpful. If you do put something on, let me know, and we'll be happy to help promote it so you can get more people there. Thank you.